let's get started. So y'all have joined us because we are covering a topic that's near and dear to the heart of myself and Colt, and we'll introduce ourselves. It is the enterprise SEO strategy, how to scale your organic traffic by upgrading existing content. My name is Garrett Sussman. I'm the demand generation manager at iPullRank. Talk a little bit about who iPullRank is, but I'm joined by Colt Sliva. Colt, who are you?
My name is Colt. As Garrett alluded to, I am the SEO engineer at iPullRank. So I handle a lot of our hard technical problems and solve those for our customers.
Awesome. Yeah, Colt's brilliant. So any SEO questions, and for those of you who are joining us, we are ready to answer whatever content, SEO, marketing questions that you have on your mind. So feel free to send them in the Q&A, send them in the chat throughout the entire presentation. We'll try to answer them as we go. If not, we will definitely take time at the end as well. So first off, just a reminder, like I said, use the chat to ask questions. Oh, and if you stay for the end, now this is being recorded and we will get it all to you, but if you stay for the end, we do have a couple special surprises. So what are we covering today? A little bit about our agenda. We're going to be going over how SEOs can leverage CTR, that's click-through rate testing, and title tag updates at an enterprise level. And with enterprise, just quick qualification, when we talk about enterprises, that's typically a larger organization in terms of their website, thousands upon thousands of web pages. That isn't always how people define enterprises, but because it can be just based on the revenue, the annual revenue that you have. For this purpose with SEO, we're going to focus mostly on the idea of scale. Second point, how to quickly identify decaying content and turn your posts into super articles. And 3 other insights on how to use internal link building and keyword tracking to optimize your content. And Colt's got some special surprises up his sleeve as well. I'm excited.
Always.
Always. I'm talking a lot, but watch out. Colt will take over, and then you can't get that guy to shut up. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, engineers and technical people, just catty Cathy's.
Anyway, where's everyone from, by the way? Feel free to say hi in the chat or share what your role is at your company. Are people doing SEO? Are you doing marketing? Are you doing content? We've got Vanessa, who's here from Seattle. What do y'all do, Kayla, Vanessa? Are you in marketing? Colt says it's raining outside in the chat. Anyway, so we're from iPullRank. So we use audience research, content strategy, technical SEO to drive growth for enterprises. We are a digital marketing agency. Oh, cool. Vanessa is a project manager for her marketing team, coordinating their blog channel. Sweet. That is awesome. So iPullRank, we drive revenue with SEO and content at scale. So a lot of times what we're focusing on is for our clients, we help them with their SEO and content, but not just for the sake of getting traffic as almost like a vanity metric. We focus and have a targeted approach to help building search traffic that's tied to business revenue. So not just top of the funnel, educational type of content that will ultimately get our clients, users to our clients' websites, go down the funnel and become customers. And we've delivered $1 billion in organic search results for our clients. Do you have anything you want to say to that, Colt?
No, I mean, that pretty much speaks for itself. We do pretty good work.
So let's dive in. The first topic that we want to tackle, and so a lot of this, so as you all know too, this is brought to us by ClickFlow, and ClickFlow is a really cool software tool that helps you accomplish a lot of these strategic tactics around, CTR and updating your content. So you'll see throughout the presentation, there's a lot of this stuff that you can actually do through their software. So if you do want to check it out, we'll have a link at the end for you to get involved with ClickFlow, but it's clickflow.com. So click-through rate testing. So the idea here with CTR testing is that by adjusting the title and the meta description of your articles, of your, any sort of pages on your website, your blog posts, that you can improve the number of people that actually click on the link when they're searching on Google and go to the website. That's your click-through rate. So it's based on how many people see the link to your website when they search for the query on Google, and then actually click the link and go to your site. And that'll be your click-through rate. So your title and your meta description, the title is how Google reads the title. The meta description is the little blurb that's written in the HTML code that kind of gives the insight into what the article is about. One thing to keep in mind before we dive into this is the title of your articles typically do impact your rankings. So if you're writing a blog post and you want it to appear for a certain keyword that you're targeting, including it in the title of the article will actually improve your chances that it will show up when someone searches for that keyword. The meta description has been shown to not have an impact on rankings, but it will impact the click-through rate. Cole?
Yeah, so basically that's a twofold strategy. So embedding your keywords and then also making the title and meta description tantalizingly impossible not to click on. You just have to click on it is the strategy here. And so that's what we want to A/B test.
Cool. So A/B testing, basically, if you look at the example here, is trying these two different versions of the title and seeing which one results in more clicks, and the rate of clicks. So in this option, having a title that says marketing blog versus the title of your marketing blog says best marketing blog, parentheses, latest strategies and tips. You think, hypothesize whenever you're conducting an experiment like this, that maybe adding best and latest strategies and tips would increase the clicks. So the old manual way for SEO pre-post testing was like you have your old version, you have your new version of the title. You have your old version of the meta description, you have your new version of the meta description. You're manually tracking the test starting date, and then you have a set test ended date. So for instance, here in the example, like about a 2-week, 14-day period, and then you want to track the results. So what is the improvement or decline of the click-through rate based on the second version that you're testing, and then any notes that you have about it?
You can actually, like, if different analysts are doing the calculations on CTR impressions, you can actually calculate that differently. Someone could have used a window, someone could have just used a certain day versus a certain day. So there's been mistakes made in the past the manual way. It'd be nice to automate it, wouldn't it?
Would it be? Well, in walks ClickFlow through the door. If ClickFlow was a person. So check it out. With the software, it's cool. What you can do is you can identify. First off, it's identifying which pages you want to test, right? And so one way to think about doing that is, what are the pages on your website that have a high impression rate, that get a lot of views on Google, but a very low click-through rate, that people aren't clicking? There's an opportunity there for you to do a test where you're changing up the title and the meta description and hoping that you keep that high impression rate, but you increase the click-through rate. One note that I'll mention that I said earlier, but like with any of these, and why it's so important to document these tests, is changing something like the title or testing something like the title could have a increase, but it could also have a decrease in rankings and ultimately in terms of visibility and clicks. So if you see a negative impact by a test like this, you'll want to be ready to roll it back. Colt, any thoughts on that?
Just what's exciting about this to me is that that your site has a 1.01% click-through rate on average across the whole site. And then, like, let's say that second entry down there, the ultimate guide to growing your business, that has a 0.5% click-through rate. So if you were to bring that up to average, which isn't asking an impossible task, it's just bringing it back up to the par with the rest of your site, there's an opportunity to double that from about 2,000 clicks to 4,000, which would be, a huge win.
Yeah, that's significant traffic. So many more people having exposure to your site and doing that initial brand touch where eventually they would possibly become customers and kind of start that process. So using ClickFlow, identify those high impression but low click-through pages so you can start testing. Testing tips. So what are some of the things that you might want to try out to impact the title that you people have seen, usually a positive association with. You could try adding brackets, adding the actual year to the title, try putting the keywords at the very beginning. That's something you'll see from a lot of tools recommend taking the actual keyword and putting it at the beginning of the title. So it's almost like Google knows that's what you're trying to target. There's really no one size fit all for any page if you're doing it right, but I think it's meaningful to look at an aggregate. That's from Dan Carpenter, SEO strategist at Crush Empire. Colt, from your experience, do you have any tips when it comes to like what to test for titles that works?
I think that might be coming up on the next slide, where we're highlighting some other examples. Oh, we're not. Okay. Well, yeah, so moving the position of the keyword, adding numbers is usually a good suggestion. You can try different kinds of characters or like symbols. So like Google started changing titles of things that had a pipe character, the straight up and down line. But they were changing that to dashes. So they were sort of trying to normalize those results. So you could try to with different characters, and then additionally, like a call to action, varying call to action, things like that.
And that is one caveat, I think, as well, to keep in mind that Cole kind of mentioned. About a couple of months ago, Google did kind of get a lot of attention in the SEO world because they've been actually doing this for a while, but adjusting the titles based on what the algorithm thinks is the best sort of like representation, or the meta descriptions as well, the best representation of what the person is trying to search for. So it is always valuable, I think, whether you're doing it manually or using a tool, is to actually go to the query that you're targeting and just seeing what is appearing in the search results and seeing what Google is choosing as your title, because that could show up. One thing that they've been doing a lot is like, if you are using any sort of like CMS tool that appends like the brand at the end of every single title, like the Google algorithm might just start removing that if it doesn't like help the actual information about what the article is about or the page. So in this example, they saw an impact of 75% click increase with impressions increasing by over 100%, 35% click-through rate, and 23,000 click increase overall. So you run your test for 2 weeks or however long. The larger the sample size, so the more people who see it, the better you can get a sense that the test was actually statistically significant. It's very hard to do that for smaller sites in general, but it doesn't mean that you shouldn't try, because a lot of this, what you're trying to do is identify kind of directionality that it is going in the right direction. But if you do a test like this and you see the results are generally going positive, then you can feel pretty good about making that update and then moving on to the next test. So how do you get started? Kind of recap is looking at the pages with the high impression but below average click-through rates. Use either Google Search Console or a tool like ClickFlow. Look to competitors in the SERP for title inspiration. So that's another thing. When you are looking at the queries, you're typing in the keyword that you want to try to target, see what the actual titles that are coming in, because that gives you an indication of what Google thinks is the right sort of title for that query. And so you can kind of take some notes from that when you're trying to improve upon it. And then add eye-catching elements like brackets, the year, add a number in the front of a title for listicles, or you can always pivot to a longer tail keyword. And a long tail keyword is not just using like a short, 1, 2, 3 word sort of keyword that has a high search volume. You might be targeting something that not as many people are searching for, but it's much more specific, and therefore you have a better chance of probably ranking for it.
Also emojis, fire emoji, rocket ship. Those will actually render in the SERPs if you want to experiment with those.
I love that. I'd love to see some experiments around emojis. How about Unicode? Can you do Unicode in title, like where it like looks like the font is changed?
Yeah, I believe that should render too.
Kayla asks, she was wondering how the last few months of Google updates have impacted rankings and the best practices to use with new updates.
So it depends on the industry, and then it also depends on what Google's targeting with the updates. Really, only the page title update has affected the SERPs for, sort of like title and meta description. The other thing that might have been impacted is indented search results. So where, you have similar pages that might have similar titles and meta descriptions, you might, rank for 2 pages on the same query. So if you were to sort of structure them similar on purpose, then you might be able to rank multiple pages, which would increase impressions, but you also might only get 1 click. So that'd be a weird test, because you might actually have more success with higher impressions, but less success with click-through rate on that secondary page.
And one other thing I'd add to that is really good suggestions, Colt, is Google is continuing to roll out more and more visual sort of rich snippets or rich features that show up in SERPs. So when you're thinking about where your rankings are, you want to think about visually where you are, like if you're appearing on page 1, because traditionally there's this whole idea of like the 10 blue links, and you just want to rank in the top 10. You want to really think about, are you appearing on that first page? And so another thing you can do with some of these tests is those, like those close calls where you might be at the top of page 2, and with like a little sort of alter to the title tag, maybe you can get to page 1.
Yeah, that's great.
Title updates in the SERP. So, you see the example there. And on to the next topic, content decay. Content decay. I love this title. Content decay like sounds like really dramatic, doesn't it?
Like that's our next heavy metal band.
I'm down. Let's start it up. What do you? I'll play the guitar, although it's been years. So, content decay is really this idea of when you put out a piece of content or a content that you've had on your website for a long time. Usually, like Google will index it. They'll crawl it, then they'll index it, and you'll start to see traffic in the form of clicks, right? And so you might peak at a certain amount of clicks over time. Now, that's not like a static amount. It's not like after 1 week, you're going to see your high amount of click, the peak of your clicks. It could be over 3 months, 6 months, a year, could be 4 years, 5 years, to Kayla's point about, all the Google updates, you could fluctuate. But over time, especially as like maybe competitors are creating new content and better content, maybe the keyword has a different meaning, and so your content isn't as relevant as it once was when you first created it, you'll start to see a decay over time of the content. So you'll see less clicks, and ClickFlow actually has a free tool that allows you to track this content decay. And we're going to talk about why you want to pay attention to that, how you can use that in your content strategy to kind of recapture those clicks. So one thing you can do is once you identify those places where the content has decayed, without necessarily creating any net new content, by updating the old content to better reflect what is ranking for those targeted keywords, you can recover a lot of that search traffic. So for instance, in this example, you can see what Mailshake did is they actually grew their organic traffic to their blog by 117% in 30 days without creating any new content, right? They identified their old decayed content, they made updates to it, and then Google's like, oh, fresh content. Oh, you're answering our query a lot better. Oh, we're going to send you to the top of the SERPs. Not that Google is a person, but I'm sure it sounded like that. And so what they did is they used the content decay report to choose pages that were losing traffic, like I mentioned, because the competition was putting out great new content on the same topic. They also picked 3 posts that were within striking distance of ranking on page 1 for their target keyword. So that goes back to that testing example that I was giving. But for content decay, if you have content that was ranking on page 1 and using this tool, you've identified over time, okay, now it's like at page 2, but at the top of page 2, there's probably an opportunity there to update it with, more current statistics, answering some questions that maybe you didn't answer, going into depth about some questions, updating your external links and making sure that the external links are going to current relevant content. So you optimize this content, and there's a tool in ClickFlow that gives you like the grade and so the readability level. Like maybe most of the articles for that query are written at an 8th grade level, but your content's written at a 10th grade level. Which there's the what is it called, the Fleischer scale?
Yeah, Flesch Kincaid.
Flesch Kincaid, there you go, that like identifies like the level, the reading level of the content. So maybe you need to simplify your content because that's the level that Google is acknowledging that will rank highly for this. Any thoughts on that, Colt?
Yeah, so by query, or who are the cohorts for searching something, generally they might be looking for a certain level of readability. When I go looking for a recipe, I don't want a dissertation on what the acids and fats are doing. I just want, the instructions in simple language as possible. So depending on the content, you're going to want to target it to a certain group. And then also, across that topic, there's going to be a set of keywords that are more common than others. And so you want to embed those in a diverse way to sort of communicate the topic clearly for Google's parsing.
Yeah, really well said. We're going to dive a little bit into that like clustering of keywords a little bit later. So how do you get started with the decaying pages? So as we mentioned, you find your top decaying pages, the pages that have gone down over time. I actually did this whole process at an old job that I was at. I was working for a SaaS tool where we had written all these articles about online reviews, and we updated them as well and saw a 100% increase in traffic. So it definitely works. But basically, you want to find your top decaying pages, identify them, start updating them. Make sure you document as well what you're updating so you know where you've made changes. One recommendation I would make is if you're not using like a software tool, or you can either do it obviously in Google Sheets, but you can also annotate in Google Analytics. If you're using Google Analytics to track your performance of your blog posts, you can leave annotations in there for any updates to refer to like a more comprehensive documentation.
All right. So upgrading your existing content into super articles, that is some terminology that I created offhand because it sounded exciting and thrilling. But basically, it's the hub of hub and spoke articles, or the pillars of pillar content. And so to be able to do this, what you're going to want to do is identify trending search topics first. So the best way to do that is to go into a tool like Google Search Console and just see some common trends. Here's a bunch of queries that are related to earrings, and or rings in general, and you can see that we have anxiety rings, fidget rings, and anxiety ring singular coming up multiple times. So there is a demand in this market for sort of anxiety, fidgety kind of rings that you can spin on your finger. So now that we've sort of identified an opportunity for a cluster, we can start doing some keyword research for super article candidate keywords. So here I'm just using Suval. I think that's how you'd say it. It's I always just want to call it solve, but it's like SOOBLE. And then it's going to, yes, thank you, Garrett. It's going to go and scrape all of the suggestion engines from like YouTube, Amazon, Google, right? So we can see exactly what people are searching for. And we can use that to empower our super article. Additionally, you could use a tool like ClickFlow at that point, which is going to look at the pages in a specific SERP and see what those competing articles are talking about, right? So then you can sort of take what everyone else is doing and then improve on it beyond them. So you're going to basically want to get a total master list of what you want to write about. This can come from Google Search Console, whatever your keyword research tool is of choice, like SEMrush, let's say. And then people also ask questions is a big one. So that is the little box that you're going to see where it's going to have all of the questions, and then you click it down and it drops down an answer. So you can just basically use a tool or a service to scrape all of those to see what people are commonly asking about these, and then deduplicate from all of these data sources to get like a master unique list for this super article. Next. And then we'll want to start identifying a keyword cluster. So this is, we might have a set of words that are similar, but they don't exactly fit into the same space. So most clusters you can generally identify with some common sense and research. So we saw that we had ruby rings, emerald rings, wedding rings, right? All of these things would be, you know, classic rings. And then we have fidget rings on the other side, and that would be rings that spin, anxiety rings, spinner rings, spinning rings, ring that clicks. So all of these keywords sort of come together. And what I've done here is I got fancy with some algorithmic clustering. So I use Google's BERT. I use their own technology against them to sort of place all of these keywords, convert them into numbers, and then put those numbers onto a graph. So we can actually physically see where the clusters exist in 2D space. And A, that's really exciting, but B, you don't need to do that because you probably could have figured that out with common sense. And then you would want to use, a writing tool to figure out what sort of keyword expansion you need to do to really fill out this piece of content with to resolve the search intent as completely as possible, address all of their needs, link to relevant products and services, internal link to other information that might be the spokes from the hub, and really grow that piece of content. And I just wanted to point out that ClickFlow's got the right idea here because they are hosting this webinar, and it is a solid product for doing that. Additionally, one thing that we haven't really mentioned is the word count. It does help to have a longer word count. It's not necessarily a ranking signal, but through a series of studies done, they looked at article length and relative position, and there's a correlation there between writing more and ranking better. So if you can clearly state your ideas in more words and better target the keyword that people are searching with, then you're going to rank.
Yeah, the only thing I'd add to that, to your point, it's like it is a correlation study. So you wonder to what extent it's like people who write longer articles might invest more in content and might write better articles. Like this isn't an excuse to just like, just because you add like a ton of words on there doesn't necessarily mean you're going to rank. But if it's more in depth than the competition, it's probably what Google like.
I did do a study on Google News articles, and who ended up ranking wasn't necessarily who broke news, which is generally like a big indicator of ranking high in Google top news. What ended up pushing articles over was having more entities or more keywords that were related to the topic. So basically they started grabbing the most complete coverage of an event and pushing that to the top. So if you can get complete coverage of a topic or idea, then that is going to be a clear signal that you should get pushed to the top. And that usually means more words on page.
Exactly.
So the weird thing about clustering is that if you do add some unrelated terms, then it can throw your clusters sort of into chaos. So I added the fidget rings Christmas gift term here, and you can see that it has been classified with the rest of the rings because we're talking about Christmas, which is going to probably be commonly related to earrings, diamonds. I'm sure that some people are proposing. Wedding rings can be in there. So just by having the sort of Christmas gift terminology, that actually fits into a totally different cluster that you might not have thought of. So, I don't know what the advice is here, Garrett. What would you say?
I would say that when you are, I would say, systematically or scientifically adding keywords, just be aware of how that's impacting your rankings and what you're ranking for. Like there are tools when you're doing keyword rankings to see if all of a sudden you start ranking for a bunch of keywords that you are not necessarily intending to. Like in this example, like if you start ranking like number 100 for best Christmas gifts, and you just mention it once, you're like, that might be throwing you off in different like situation, probably could hurt your rankings for like this other category that you're actually going for, maybe.
Yeah, I think systematically introducing keywords is a great strategy. And then build a little bit, review, build a little bit, review if you have the time and the sort of patience to do that, because then you can see what has impacted. And maybe that's a signal, if you are writing about fidget Christmas gifts, that you need Christmas gift topical content instead of placing that into the fidget category that you might have. So I guess the point here is that we're not necessarily always right about topics, because we're comparing sort of human brains to automated machines, and we have to test against that.
Right. Like we're trying to understand the way that Google understands our content. And one thing to always think about in this whole game of SEO and content is you're trying to satisfy a few different people. You're trying to satisfy Google, but you're also trying to satisfy your audience. And so just because Google thinks it's going a certain way, it's all traffic is not created equal, right? Like you don't want to just rank for everything because the numbers are going up and it goes to your website. You want to create content that's relevant to what your users are looking for. So if your specific, content isn't really, relevant to Christmas gifts, then you probably don't want to branch out in that direction if that's ultimately going to, impact your business negatively. It's case by case. It depends, right?
It depends. I think what the point is that you can take super articles too far, where it's like,
Yes.
okay, now what is this about? Because I don't know anymore.
Yes.
You can go from clustered to unclustered.
I agree, and then that won't help. If it's not clustered and it is too sparse, then you'll see a negative impact.
So keyword tracking for content updates, which is something that we just touched upon. So the weird thing about content tracking as you update articles is that content in SEO is cumulative, and so tracking those changes can be hard. You might change an article on a certain date and then change it, a different one on a certain date, and all of that's getting added up into your total traffic, but it can be hard to see the trees out of the forest there, because it's all just seems like it's going up and you don't know what is causing that. So what we want to do here is get some tracking going. So we've tried to do this with Google Data Studio, and the comparison doesn't really provide any visible insights. You'll see these giant spikes and these giant downtrends, but really when you average them together on a case-by-case basis, it's difficult to tell what's really going on. So using a tool like ClickFlow, where you can track the date that something's changed and then track the specific test and traffic against that, is extremely valuable. And generally implementing this through Google Data Studio and analytics just doesn't come out to the same result from my experience.
Yeah, and to Colt's point, it's like you really don't know when the change is going to impact the actual rankings or click-through rate. Like it can happen immediately. Like there are times when a change is picked up like that, and all of a sudden you're seeing major fluctuations. And then there are cases where it can take a lot longer, in terms of what you want to speak to that, Colt?
Yeah, I mean, we just had a client who we were doing a bunch of work on, nothing was happening, and then we had a unannounced, or not unannounced, but a unnamed Google algorithm update, where there was just a high volatility day, and then all of a sudden their traffic just shot up. Like Google hadn't counted those weights in, they were just using their index and cache, and then that day they just decided to recalculate and take into account all of the changes we have made, and then it was just like that day everything happened at once. So that can happen depending on the work you're doing, especially if you are introducing new HTML elements and not just affecting the words on the page.
Exactly. And one last thing I'd say to that is think about all this in terms of directionally, in the sense of it's really hard in the world of content SEO, as Colt started this, in terms of, it's really hard to track content. It's really hard to know what one specific change, if it impacts if it impacts the rankings. I think that's what's great about ClickFlow. It does kind of point you in the right direction, but if there's a huge algorithm update, or a competitor just adds a new article that's really fantastic, sometimes it's hard to know exactly why things are changing. As an SEO, like Colt, that's what your job is to do your best with the data to try and figure it out.
I'm taking a quick beat to check for questions or to give someone a chance to ask questions. I feel like we
How
just
about you?
we just hit on a bunch of technical stuff, so I just want to make sure. And
Yeah, let's get some feedback. How's everyone doing? Are there any questions in the room? Feel free to leave a question or just something in the chat if you have any thoughts or anything that you wanted us to touch on. Is everyone finding this stuff helpful in terms of like how you're thinking about it for your own content and starting to get ideas on what you can potentially, do with an article that is way overdue for updates, and you've seen the traffic go down and you're like, oh, now I can start, testing it out. Okay, Kayla finds it super
yeah,
helpful.
thank you, Kayla. Hey, Kayla, what's your Twitter handle? I'll follow you.
There we go. We appreciate that.
All right, so how to get started with this. So every content change or optimization has a go live event, right? And then you can track the before and after, or A/B test similar pages. So you might make a change to one page that gets similar traffic or conversion rate to another page and then check against each other. You can also sum up the effect of these experiments to get a cumulative impact. So if you are doing something to a page template, let's say, then you would want to check all of those. Again, this is not a great experience when you have multiple dates and multiple pages that are going live at different times. It just feels bad to do in Google Data Studio. So you're either going to need to pull it into Excel probably, or a tool like ClickFlow. So internal link building.
Colt loves this. Loves talking about internal link building.
Whew. It's I like nerd stuff, and really link building is graphs. It's a graph algorithm. That's what Google is doing there. So it is, you have these nodes and you're building a network or a graph by pointing them at each other, and then those are passing value, and that is PageRank. So link building isn't just external links. We can really build value with our internal links and sculpt that value into your internal pages. So, we're not just upvaluing these random pages that are in the footer and header, but focusing and targeting on the pages that are actually going to convert things for your business. So that way we can, again, then turn traffic into money.
And things can get really complicated. Going back to the fact that this is about enterprises, when you have thousands and thousands of pages, like, updating your internal links or updating something that, if you add a widget that's like a, related products or, some sort of link building that's going to impact a whole bunch of your pages, that's going to have a significant impact. So that's why this is pretty important, the way to think about it.
So how to get started, you'll want to run a crawl at your site. And then if you're doing it simply, you can use internal link count. So that would just be like, this page receives, 15 links. This one receives 30. But some can provide you with an actual page rank calculation. I know that like Screaming Frog can do it. Botify can do it. DeepCrawl can do it, right? So whatever your tool of choice is there, you should be able to get a page rank calculation. And then you want to look for a variety of diverse keywords to use as anchor text. So if you are using the same keyword over and over and over again, Google addressed that in an update a few years ago where they were trying to prevent Google bombing. I don't remember who was what was getting Google bombed. I think it was like they were targeting George W. Bush for something. Like this was years ago. Yeah, and they just kept using the same anchor text to try to get him to rank for something.
Did it work?
Oh yeah, yeah. Reddit has done this like a bunch of times where they're like, post this text here to get this to the top of Google search results.
That's some serious impressive manipulation, if I say so myself.
So they've sort of devalued repeated anchor text. So what we want to
don't do this.
Yeah, no, don't. It doesn't work anymore. Diversify. Use a lot of variety of keywords to internally link.
And just to tie this back real quick, like to the content decay, like when you're updating your content, that is something to think about, especially if, for instance, if you've covered a bunch of new topics with your newer content that you've made over time and you're looking at a piece to update and it's in that same cluster that Colt mentioned, there's opportunities to link it internally, link it back. And you're probably gonna go over this, but
nope,
like,
I'm like a goldfish. I forgot what we talked about 10 minutes ago.
boom.
That was
So
great, Garrett.
when you're practically like, you know, implementing this and you're doing your content decay updates, links are a part, like something to consider. If you have a newer post that you've written about and you're updating an older post that's related, using, you know, whatever anchor text that you think is appropriate that's slightly different than maybe your main keyword, linking them all together will ultimately, you know, like a rising tide lift all boats. As long as they are related, that will help. Proceed, sir.
Zach is asking if Sejoy has a question because he's got his hand raised.
He's got that emoji. He's like waiting. It's a big question. While he's writing that question,
yeah, I'll do the rest of the slide. So you want to target the high value pages with lower internal link counts. And that is actually pretty often that happens. You usually want to drive more traffic or more internal links to those pages than like your terms, let's say. And then track the target page that is receiving the links to evaluate the impact. I wrote just the target page. You can also keep an eye out on both the donor pages and the traffic pages if you want a complete view of what's going on, because the donor pages are donating link value as well. So as soon as you change the amount of internal links that you're doing, or especially if you do it at scale, then the whole graph algorithm shifts. And, you know, certain nodes grow, certain nodes shrink. And, you know, there can be like secondary and tertiary sort of effects of that radiate out.
like
So
reverberations.
it's hard to predict what's going to happen. And again, this is where testing comes in.
Exactly. And so just to like clarify, so for those of you who aren't familiar with like PageRank, like each of your pages have like almost a certain amount of power to it. And each of these links, every time you're linking out, are distributing that power all around that's gonna impact the rankings. So, you know, when you have these most powerful high page rank pages, you know, those are the ones that are going to help lift some of those other pages when you link. Question for you, Colt, can you link too many to the highest page rank pages on your website? Like, should you worry about how many pages you're linking to those highest level pages?
No, not really. I mean, I wouldn't do it like 10 times in the same article. That would be pretty ineffective. It's just one link to one page.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you will want to reduce like the number of times that you're linking to a specific thing, you know, like terms, contact us, right? Because those could be on every single page. And then to be able to up value another page, then you might have to bring those down a step. I'm trying to think of some other ones that everyone just constantly links to. Those are big ones.
So if you have like a major, because obviously a lot of us, you know, when we're building our websites, we want to drive people to like a product page, right? But sometimes it's hard to get a product page to rank, except for when someone's specifically searching for that product. But you know, you wish you could have your, you know, fidget ring product page rank for the term fidget rings. That's probably not going to happen a lot of times. Well, maybe one or two. Basically, you'll have that maybe high top of funnel educational informational content that might be driving the most traffic and have a higher page rank. You'll want to use that to leverage to like these deeper parts of the funnel, right?
Yeah. All right, so
go.
Joy says, I hope I'm saying that right. So while doing the content creation, if I pull up GSE queries and create evergreen content on that basis, do you think it's creating impact, or you suggest any other way? I would use multiple sources of search queries. So that's why I said to create sort of the big list of multiple data sources, because you want to expand on what you're already doing and then also grow your keyword portfolio beyond what it is right now. Google Search Console will only give you the things that you're ranking for today, but there's always things that you're not ranking for yet that you have yet to write content about. So you really want to get a holistic set of keywords if possible, and then, you know, deduplicate them to get your natural keyword list. But that can be like oftentimes people do keyword portfolios at the site level, but it can be extremely helpful to do it at the article level if you're trying to create your evergreen content. You wanna, yeah, okay, this is the common places to link from. So homepage is usually has the most value, especially because this isn't just like a closed loop. You're also receiving links from other sites, and that's where a lot of value comes from. And those other sites are usually linking to your homepage. Also, every single blog post links back to the blog root. So even though that page is often useless, it is, well, it's not useless. It's a navigational page, but it's not going to, you know, bring you any sales or do anything effectively beyond that. So we can link out from the blog root page, and that is another way to spread value to, let's say, your services page. Or if you're an e-commerce site, maybe your product highlights page. And then common places where page rank is wasted would be the contact us page, terms and conditions, careers is a big one, and then plans and pricing. I mean, oftentimes people do search for pricing, but if you are trying to get them onto a specific product details page first, then that is a way to sort of migrate some of that value. So if you want to learn more about our strategies and how some of the most expert enterprise folks are doing work for brands like QuickBooks, Shopify, and Bluehost, go check out our guide, iPullRank.com/content-strategy-guide. It is an incredible guide. Garrett, any commentary?
Yeah, I mean, it's epic. The one thing I liked about this guide is how comprehensive it was, and it really speaks to the enterprise. So, like, if you are working with, you have either multiple websites, multiple departments. If you have to, you know, if you have a legal team, you got to run stuff by every time you're creating content, because at the enterprise level, things can get very complicated and you need a lot of sign-offs. This guy talks about A, content auditing, a lot of stuff that we went through here. B, content creation and creating workflows and processes. And then that final component for enterprises, which is huge, is governance. So how do you create responsibilities across the organization to make sure you loop in the right people at the right time so you can keep your content moving and not have it get stuck, because you've got this great idea and you get halfway through 6 months later and, you know, someone who wasn't informed is like, yeah, no, we can't do that. Like, try to be future thinking with that. So that's what this guide really covers. And it talks to a lot of experts who have been in there and built it from the ground up.
You think a small guy, a small website could use it to figure out how to beat sort of larger enterprise incumbents and work around their sort of their issues?
Yeah, I think it's valuable. It can even be valuable for, like, if you're a one-person marketing team, because when you build your content, you're thinking about scaling, you're thinking about growth, and having processes done correctly early on will impact you in the long run. So I think there are a lot of gems and insights that you can get no matter your size. But the governance part is key for those enterprises.
Also, go ahead and check out this free decay tool. I'm going to be using this to share with clients what they need to update, sort of as just like a case-by-case basis. Since we do work with enterprises, I would probably do this at the template level, where you can go into Google Search Console, maybe find a great target, and you know, and then go get the graph for this, because this graph is actually much nicer than anything you would get out of Google Search Console.
Yeah, I like that. And so it's like right now you can go do that. Like, you can, if you want to take and implement some of the stuff that we just started talking about, like, go click on the link. Zach shared it in the chat right now. So you can go and find that one article and see if you want to try and make some up. Make sure you document, like we discussed. Make sure that you write down where you're making that change when you identify what content's decayed and how you want to update it, so you can see and maybe show to the executive team how your content updates have improved, you know, the traffic and ultimately revenue. But that tool's available. And then one thing I did add for those of you, we can send this out afterwards, but if you want the presentation deck that we had, and you want like an easier way to get our guide, I included another link there, iPullRank.com/clickflow. If you click on that and sign up, we can send over the deck and presentation. Are there any questions? We still have 8 to 9 minutes. If not, we can head out early. Just a quick set of Colt. If someone wants to find you online and get in touch and ask you questions after this webinar, what's the best way?
LinkedIn, Colt Sliva, or Twitter. I am Senor Colt, spelled Spanish or the Italian way, so SIGNOR COLT. So you can find me both places, and I'm always welcome to chat.
Awesome. So yeah, if you want to find Colt, definitely find him online. I'm on Twitter and LinkedIn as well. Just my name, Garrett Sussman, GARRETT SUSSMAN. I probably spend more time on Twitter. I find Twitter to be more fun. So Kayla, if you don't have a Twitter account, you should create one and come and interact. All of you, everyone here, create a Twitter account and hang out with us and share memes. We like to have a good time. And of course, check out ClickFlow. Visit ClickFlow, check them out. Like a lot of great content coming out of there. They were the brainchild of Eric Sue, who also did Single Grain, which is another great marketing agency. And if you do have any questions about enterprise level content, SEO, audience research, iPullRank does offer services around all of that. We give great content recommendations. We do full technical SEO audits. So it's just iPullRank.com. Anything else that you wanna add, Mr. Cole, aside from your favorite cereal, which we covered at the beginning?
No, I just want to highlight that half this deck was done by Zach, but unfortunately he was a little hoarse today, so he couldn't come and talk to all you fine folks. But you could find him on Twitter as well, ZPR Grove, and then also probably on LinkedIn. I don't know if we're connected. It's fine. But he did a great job organizing this content and this presentation. It was a great deck. And then
shout out as well to Alexandra Coates, COTE,
yeah.
Also helped organize a lot of this behind the scenes, another Wizard of Oz situation. She's fantastic. She's on Twitter. I believe it's Alexandra Coates, COTE as well. Thank you all for joining us and spending your time on this lovely Wednesday afternoon. It's been great. Zach, thank you from me as well, and the team at iPullRank. We appreciate you. And yeah, if you want to, Zach, share what if you have the next webinar, I believe is coming in 2022, but definitely keep your eyes peeled for ClickFlow. They continue to put out these great webinars and workshops where you can get these actionable ideas on how to improve your SEO and your content. Check us out. Like I said, I've got my video coming out every Friday, the SEO Weekly, and we have a podcast tomorrow. The Rankable podcast. Should share all that stuff as well. But
we got too much going on. We're boring them.
Yeah, too much.
Got a laundry list.
Overload. Check out all the content. Well, we do content. We like doing content. We like talking content. We like talking SEO. Kayla's here for the memes. You got any memes, Colt?
No. Oh my God. Don't put me on the spot like that.
Thank you all again. It's been a pleasure. My name is Garrett from iPullRank. This is Colt from iPullRank, and we will catch you on the flip side.
Thank you all. Take care.